Behind the vibrant laughter on 1960s television lay a brutal truth, hidden for decades. Every time Sergeant Carter screamed on screen, a part of Frank Sutton's life was quietly being drained away behind the lens. Ravaged vocal cords, suffocating spikes in high blood pressure, and a quiet struggle for survival that few could have imagined.
And this goes for all of you, but especially you. If there's one foul-up tomorrow, just one foul-up, well, take my word for it, there better not be.
What truly transpired behind the studio curtain when the cameras stopped rolling? Before tragedy suddenly struck at the age of 50, Frank Sutton decided to step into the light, exposing the entire bitter dark side that CBS had once done everything to conceal.
I said it before, and I'll say it again. Any knucklehead can do your job. Now's as good a time as any to prove it.
Beginning in the 1930s, Frank Sutton's journey was paved not with Hollywood luxury, but with the smoke and fire of war. When World War II broke out, the young actor decided to put his artistic dreams on hold to join the United States Army, becoming a paratrooper in the 11th Airborne Division. Fighting directly on the brutal Pacific Front, he survived 14 bloody amphibious landings. These life-and-death experiences earned Sutton the prestigious Bronze Star Medal and the Purple Heart, proving the true courage of a real soldier on the battlefield. Returning after the war, Sutton did not take shortcuts. Instead, he resolved to pursue a formal education. He enrolled at the prestigious Columbia University, graduating with honors with a Bachelor of Arts in Drama, laying a solid foundation for a professional mindset and a burning passion for acting. In New York, he pursued the serious and rigorous method acting school. Sutton quickly established his talent on Broadway stages and dramatic television films where every gesture and look demanded astonishing precision. The year 1964 became a fateful milestone that completely turned Frank Sutton's career around. He was selected for the role of Sergeant Vince Carter in a pilot episode titled Gomer Pyle USMC from the hit television series The Andy Griffith Show on CBS. The impressive appearance of the gruff drill instructor character instantly won over the producers. This explosive performance was the catalyst that triggered CBS's decision to produce a standalone series for Sergeant Carter's character. Still, as soon as the camera lens rolled into the first days of work, a wall of tension quickly emerged on set. The vast difference in background and professional mindset between the two lead actors created a deep divide. While Frank Sutton was a formally trained theatrical actor with iron discipline, his co-star Jim Nabors, playing Private Gomer Pyle, came from a background as a nightclub singer. Nabors had never gone through any formal professional acting training whatsoever. Looking back at the early days of filming, Sutton once admitted in an interview, "The difference in backgrounds made it feel like we were speaking two different languages on the same stage." This statement accurately reflected the suffocating reality behind the lens. The burden of carrying the entire comedic rhythm of the show was placed squarely on Frank Sutton's shoulders. In his role as the straight man, he constantly had to maintain a stern face and textbook anger to serve as a foil for Nabors' unscripted and naive comedic delivery. The pressure of maintaining the rhythm alongside someone with no acting experience drove Sutton into a state of extreme nervous exhaustion. He had to constantly rehearse and recalibrate his energy to ensure scenes did not collapse before the camera lens. The disparity in skill and the pressure of carrying the script inadvertently turned the studio into a silent furnace. This tension did not stem from any personal grudge, but rather from Sutton's own uncompromising dedication to the craft. He refused to accept any sloppiness on screen, even if it was just a situational comedy. But the contrast in working styles was only the beginning. As Gomer Pyle USMC became a nationwide sensation, the unique demands of the role themselves began to ravage Frank Sutton's body in ways no one could have anticipated. Pressure amidst the storm. The year 1964 marked the beginning of a golden age in terms of viewership ratings for the CBS series Gomer Pyle USMC, but it also signaled the start of a horrific period of health devastation for actor Frank Sutton. To fully portray the authority and harshness of Sergeant Vince Carter, Sutton was forced to maintain dramatic outbursts of rage before the camera. Screaming at maximum volume continuously for 12 to 14 hours a day placed immense strain on his vocal cords. After just a few seasons of filming, his vocal cords suffered severe chronic damage. At many points directly on set, Sutton suffered total voice loss, forcing medical personnel to remain on standby for emergency care so he could regain his voice in time. Specialist medical advisors issued repeated dire warnings about the risk of permanently losing his ability to speak. Even so, faced with the studio's grueling filming schedule, Sutton still had to resort to medication injections to carry through with the intense yelling scenes. In addition to vocal cord damage, forcing his body to constantly push angry emotions to their peak caused Sutton's blood pressure levels to spike dangerously. Frequent acute hypertensive episodes left him in a state of extreme physical exhaustion. Numerous colleagues noted that Sutton once collapsed right after the director yelled, "Cut," due to an excessively rapid heartbeat. The body of a battle-tested veteran was now forced to struggle daily to meet the grueling demands of a comedic role. Beyond the physical pain, the volatile historical context also thrust Frank Sutton and the film crew into the center of a public controversy. This was a time when the Vietnam War was escalating fiercely, drawing global attention. While thousands of real American Marines were facing danger on the battlefield, the CBS sitcom painted a rosy, naive portrayal of military life that was detached from the brutal realities of war. A wave of backlash from investigative journalists and anti-war organizations quickly erupted across the media. The show was accused of deliberately promoting a skewed narrative and attempting to escape reality to appease public discontent. As a veteran who had witnessed the harsh atrocities of World War II, Frank Sutton endured immense psychological pressure. He found himself deeply conflicted, seeing his character turned into an entertainment tool while the nation was engulfed in tension. The press at the time repeatedly posed tough questions to Sutton regarding the authenticity of the show. The stark contrast between real-life war pain and illusory on-screen laughter created a mental burden that persisted for years. At the same time, Hollywood newspapers began spinning stories about the relationship between the two lead stars. They asserted that a deep-seated feud existed between Frank Sutton and Jim Nabors behind the camera. Articles reported that disparities in pay and public spotlight fueled bitter resentment from Sutton toward his co-star. Reports of heated arguments in the dressing rooms frequently splashed across the front pages of entertainment news. In reality, the truth was entirely different from the rumors. Although there was no hatred or personal friction between them, sheer physical exhaustion drove Sutton to deliberately distance himself from Nabors. Press reports from that era captured a rare statement from Sutton as he opened up about their backstage dynamic. "We don't hate each other as rumored, but the immense work pressure leaves us with no energy to talk after shooting." The awkwardness between the two lead actors became an inevitable consequence of a physically draining work schedule. The tension accumulated over each season ultimately pushed Frank Sutton's endurance to its absolute limit. He decided to step into the light to speak the truth that television networks had always sought to conceal. Bitter Confession. By 1968, after 4 consecutive seasons of enduring vocal cord damage and heavy psychological strain, Frank Sutton decided he would no longer remain silent behind the scenes at CBS. The actor proactively reached out to major investigative publications of the era to publicly expose the hidden reality, uncovering the brutal toll he had paid to bring laughter to television audiences. In a sensational interview at the time, Sutton spoke candidly about the devastating physical toll. People think yelling on television is easy. They don't realize it drains your vitality and destroys your body day by day. This public confession instantly sent shockwaves through the American entertainment industry in 1968, revealing the harsh reality behind a sitcom that the network had always painted as picture-perfect. Far beyond mere physical exhaustion, Sutton also publicly expressed profound emotional distress over how his real-life persona was completely conflated by the public with his on-screen character. Archival records note that Sutton sorrowfully recounted bitter real-life encounters when spectators recognized him on the street and treated him like a brutal, tyrannical military officer. Many overzealous fans even expected him to scream or act rudely in public places, unwittingly disregarding the integrity and dignity of a true dramatic actor. This persistent public misconception plunged Sutton into a prolonged psychological crisis as the line between a formally trained Columbia University scholar and a screaming caricature was completely erased. Entering 1969, the tragedy of typecasting officially dealt a cruel blow to the dramatic acting career Sutton had spent half a lifetime building. Even with an outstanding Bachelor of Arts in Drama and a solid foundation in method acting, he faced continuous flat rejections from Hollywood directors when auditioning for feature films. Producers in Los Angeles adamantly refused to cast him in complex psychological roles, believing his face and voice were hopelessly pigeonholed in the image of Sergeant Vince Carter. In a 1969 film feature, the press reported on Sutton's despair as he bitterly admitted that he had unwittingly become a prisoner of the very role that brought him fame. That harsh reality forced Sutton to realize that if he remained on the series, he would permanently lose the opportunity to be recognized as a serious actor on the traditional theater stage. Realizing he could no longer remain trapped in that military uniform, Sutton and his co-star Jim Nabors reached a landmark decision that stunned the entire media landscape and CBS executives. In 1969, at a time when Gomer Pyle USMC sat comfortably at the top 2 spot in television ratings across the United States, generating immense profits for CBS. The 2 lead actors stood united in demanding that the studio halt production and end the series at its absolute peak, flatly refusing to extend any commercial contracts. The decision to end the series after its 5th season was the sole escape Sutton chose for himself, aiming to liberate himself from the uniform before his physical and mental health completely collapsed. Leaving one of the biggest hit shows in America, Frank Sutton believed he would regain peace and artistic freedom. But the harsh reality of the entertainment industry thrust him into a whole new battle for a living, leaving the glory of CBS behind. Entering the 1970s after decisively closing the door on the series Gomer Pyle USMC, Frank Sutton proactively withdrew completely from the scandalous life of Hollywood. He chose a private lifestyle to protect his family home from the scrutiny of the press. The greatest emotional anchor in Sutton's life was his enduring marriage to Toby M. Landau. The two officially married in 1949, sharing more than 2 decades of ups and downs long before he reached television stardom. Alongside his devoted wife, his 2 children, Stephen and Amanda, became invaluable sources of encouragement. The warmth of family served as the sole remedy, helping the veteran Sutton soothe the psychological trauma and exhaustion following years of portraying a military officer. Press records from that era note that Sutton always regarded his family as an absolute safe zone. He strictly prohibited press photographers from approaching his private residence and turned down all interview requests that sought to probe deeply into the personal lives of his wife and children. In stark contrast to public speculation about a star possessing immense wealth, Frank Sutton's financial reality was faced with harsh pressures owing to the compensation system of that era. Although the Gomer Pyle series generated tens of millions of dollars in profit for CBS rerun royalty regulations for actors in the 1960s were extremely limited and lacked necessary legal protections. Actors back then did not receive long-term residual payments like today. Sutton received only a fixed salary based on his initial contract, leaving his actual earnings after the show ended completely disproportionate to the massive revenue generated. In public, Sutton once opened up about his financial reality. After leaving the small screen, many people think I became a millionaire. But in reality, I still have to work tirelessly every day to cover family living expenses. Financial burdens, alongside the desire to escape the shadow of Sergeant Carter, forced Sutton to continuously seek new work opportunities. Still, the doors at major Hollywood film studios in Los Angeles were nearly slammed shut in his face. The cold shoulder from feature film producers stemmed from deep-seated audience prejudice. They feared Sutton's appearance in dramatic projects would distract viewers with his former image of a comedic officer. Refusing to yield to fate, Sutton decided to return to his original artistic passion. Beginning in 1971, he threw himself into the touring commercial theater system, also known as the grueling dinner theater network. Traveling across states from the East to the Midwest of the United States, Sutton continuously took on lead roles in a series of complex psychological plays. This was a desperate effort to re-establish the versatile acting capabilities of a serious performer. Just as his efforts to re-establish himself on stage were showing promising signs, the cruelest tragedy suddenly struck right behind the velvet curtain. Tragedy of a sudden backstage death. June 28, 1974 became a tragic milestone that shocked the entire American entertainment industry. Actor Frank Sutton suddenly drew his last breath at the age of 50, right behind the velvet curtain of the stage. The tragedy occurred at the Beverly Barn Dinner Theater in Shreveport, Louisiana. The actor collapsed from an acute heart attack that struck right inside his private dressing room. The incident unfolded mere minutes before Sutton was scheduled to step onto the stage to perform his role in the play Love. Every emergency effort by on-site medical personnel was unable to reverse the situation. Medical professionals and the media of the era quickly analyzed the causes leading to his untimely death. Prolonged physical exhaustion over many years was the direct factor ravaging his cardiovascular system. Years of relentless screaming on the set of Gomer Pyle, combined with the grueling pressure of touring dense theater circuits, had eroded the veteran's health beyond recovery. News of Frank Sutton's sudden passing instantly sparked a wave of shock. Among those receiving the tragic news, co-star Jim Nabors bore the heaviest psychological blow. Regardless of a barrage of false rumors regarding backstage discord that had circulated previously, Nabors completely broke down and wept upon learning that his longtime colleague was gone forever at age 50. Speaking to investigative reporters following the tragedy, Jim Nabors offered an emotional direct confirmation. "Frank was my teacher, my greatest supporter. Without his patience, there would never have been a Gomer Pyle." Nabors' heartfelt words completely shattered all lingering suspicions of personal hatred. Their relationship transcended workplace tension to become a deeply respectful, lifelong friendship. Subsequent investigative reports continued to decode the historical secrets surrounding the relationship between the two stars. The 1960s was an era when American society remained harsh regarding artists' private lives. Jim Nabors was forced to keep his private life completely hidden under fierce media pressure until he officially married publicly in 2013. Facing those circumstances, Sutton always proactively maintained silence. Sutton willingly endured all malicious public speculation from tabloid press to create a protective shield around his co-star's privacy. This quiet protection was precisely why the bond between them remained unshakable. After formalities were completed, Frank Sutton was returned home for burial in Clarksville, Tennessee. His funeral took place amid the profound grief of family, friends, and numerous colleagues. Newspapers of the time quoted a solemn eulogy dedicated to the veteran. Frank Sutton lived a life complete with the duty of a soldier and the absolute devoted dedication of an artist. He passed away while his efforts to revitalize his theatrical career remained unfinished, leaving behind for television history the immortal figure of Sergeant Vince Carter, a legacy paid for with his very life. Frank Sutton's life stands as a bitter testament to the suffocating dark corners behind Hollywood glory. Behind the audience's laughter lay physical ruin and an artistic flame that constantly yearned for authentic devotion. Even though more than half a century has passed, Gomer Pyle, USMC, along with the image of Sergeant Vince Carter, still holds an iconic place in American popular culture. Frank Sutton's extraordinary performance laid the benchmark foundation for the archetype of a gruff but principled drill instructor, becoming a classic source of inspiration for a multitude of film characters and television shows to this day. How do you assess the trade-off and the steep price Frank Sutton paid for the role of Sergeant Vince Carter? Share your thoughts in the comments section below so we can discuss together. If you found this video rich in archival value, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Your support provides huge motivation, helping us continue uncovering subsequent historical backstage secrets. Thank you for spending time watching today's full video. Goodbye for now, and see you again in upcoming cinematic unraveling journeys.